Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about my aunt who recently passed away from complications related to COVID. Now I did touch on this in another one of my videos. I didn't go into detail or anything like that, and I did hesitate to make this a topic because usually what I do with my topics is I give it a sort of chronic illness slant, or I relate it to sort of my experiences. And I sort of debated as to whether it would be a good idea to sort of bring up this situation, and sort of kind of make it about me. I kind of was like, that's not going to sound very good, but that's usually, I try to relate it to myself and my experience because my channel is focused on the chronic illness experience. So I kind of felt, since I did bring it up briefly in another video, people may be wondering, what happened, or, um, they may have questions. But I'm not really going to talk about that in detail because I really don't know all of the details. But there was something very striking about what happened with her that really made me think a lot about my own situation. So my aunt passed away at the beginning of this month. My cousins caught COVID at the end of February, and they unfortunately brought it in to my aunt. My aunt is basically homebound. She's 85, and she's not going. She doesn't go anywhere unless my cousins take her somewhere. She doesn't drive. She has a walker and things like that. So we know basically more or less what happened. Do we know the details? She was diabetic. She also, I think, had hypertension, which are two big risk factors. The other thing was that she did have one vaccine already. So had her first vaccine, I think maybe a couple weeks prior. And I'm not sure if that's why, my cousins felt more comfortable, I guess, not being as careful. I really don't know. I have no idea. And, I guess these things just, happen. But the thing that really struck me about the situation, after sort of the initial shock, we were all blindsided by it because we sort of assumed, we're at the end, we're a year into this thing, and we felt like we had rounded the corner and we were, everybody in the family was going to be fine. So it hit me a while after, because she got sick, and it took about 2 weeks, from the point where we knew that she was sick to the point where she passed. And after that, we knew what was going, to happen after that. My parents are actually currently out there at her services. But when I had a moment to sit down and look at the situation, our situations are very, very similar. Our living arrangements are very similar. She was mostly homebound. Her son lived with her. He was one of her primary caregivers. Her daughter, and they're not extremely young. So I know it sounds kind of weird that I'm saying my cousins. They are much older than I am. We have a very, very large family. She's old enough to be my mom's mom. So my cousins are in their early 50s. So it's not like these are young kids or even people my age. So her son lives with her. Her daughter has her own house, and then two of her sons live with her, and one of her sons, my aunt's grandson, is her designated caregiver. So he was getting paid to provide care for her. But they all were, it was a 3-person job. It was, unfortunately, she needed a lot of care. And so it was, my two cousins and then her grandson were all providing care for her. They kind of just took different shifts. Some of them took, graveyard shift, some of them took swing shift because she needed that much care. And I'm not in that severe of a, my condition is not that severe. I can still drive. So if I need to go to urgent care, I can still drive myself to urgent care. I make my own food. I clean up after myself. But for the most part, especially during the past year, I have been at home. I have not been going out to stores. I mean, I can't really go out to stores anyways. I stopped going out to the swap meet. I've just been at home. Have we stopped having people over to the house? No, we have not. We've it's been more limited, but we've still had guests here and there throughout the year, not as frequently as we used to, but you know, my sister and her husband come and visit a lot more now that we're in quarantine than before. So I can't say that we have been any extra careful than they were being. I have no idea, how it happened or how they brought the virus into her, but obviously they were more than likely in contact with other people, friends, maybe other family members. I don't know. But I looked at the situation and it really scared me a bit because we are fully dependent on other people to be careful for us. And they just aren't sometimes, and we're at their mercy. So it really struck me, especially after, now that the vaccine rollout has, is now for chronically ill people with underlying conditions. And my decision was I'm not going to get the vaccine. Then this happened. This happened right before the vaccine was available to me. It was really unsettling because I don't see a level of care here. I see a lot, let's just say I see a lot of similarities between my aunt's situation and my situation here. So it really did not sit well with me, did not, obviously I have a lot of mixed feelings towards my cousins, and I was very angry about it when it happened. And my sister was too, like a lot of us were really angry about it. But I was angry and I couldn't really figure out why. Because it is, she was 85 years old. It's not that, I don't want to say like my cousins should have stopped their lives, but at the same time, the same thing could happen to me. I'm in the exact same situation as her, and I do start to see that there is a similar carelessness there. The other thing was when the lockdown first began last year, and we were, 1 month passed, 2 months passed, I started to see a lot of comments on social media with people saying, let's just have sick people stay at home and the rest of us can go on with our lives. And it was one of the stupidest suggestions I had ever heard, because a lot of the deaths that were happening at the time, a lot of the earliest deaths from COVID were in nursing homes. And these people weren't going out anywhere. They were staying, in one place, and they were the first victims of the pandemic. And people still continue to insist that if you just stay at home, if we just keep sick people and elderly people at home, that way the rest of us can get back to our lives. And it's that same selfish thinking that cost my aunt her life. So it doesn't work. That doesn't work. I knew it didn't work from the very beginning. I knew that it was not a good strategy to keep the elderly alive, because they were the only reason people in nursing homes were dying is because the employees were bringing the virus into them, the same way that my cousins had brought the virus into my aunt. So it's not effective. And it's been proven time and time again that it's not effective. It was proven from the very beginning that it was not effective, that it was actually possibly even more harmful, because it's almost like being, an animal in a pen. I'm stuck at home. I can't go anywhere. So I'm constantly exposed to these people that are going out and doing things, people that are going out and meeting with other people that are going out to eat, that are going to restaurants and meeting with other people and then coming home to me, right? Whereas if I was able to leave, if I was able to get out and go somewhere, I could at least stay somewhere else if I knew that they were having company over. And that would give me some extra protection, but I can't because I'm disabled. I have my, oxygen concentrator, I have my medications here. I have to be in one place. And I also can't be staying at hotels and in all these strange places because then there's also risk there as well. So you're kind of stuck when you're homebound, or when you're high risk. And so that seeing what happened to my aunt put into perspective what could happen to me. And I know that sounds a bit narcissistic, like why am I thinking about myself when this happened to my aunt? And I'm just, like I said, this is just a topic for the channel, because I always try to relate it to chronic illness and the chronic illness experience. I feel terrible. I feel terrible, especially for my mom, and all of her siblings, because nobody could be there for her. You're not permitted in the hospital. And because she wasn't technically next of kin, they couldn't tell her what they were doing to her in the hospital. They couldn't tell her the current status of her condition. They could only talk to her immediate family, which were her children. So my mom was sort of left in the dark, and she was only getting information from my cousins, who were also very, very ill at the time because they also got COVID. So I feel terrible for her and for the fact that they've been there for their other siblings that have passed. They've been at their bedside or at the hospital, and this was the one sibling that they couldn't be with at all, and it was heartbreaking for them. And it was hard to see that. And then also at the same time, I'm dealing with this sort of, I don't know if it's like an existential crisis or something, the sort of reality of my aunt and I were living almost these parallel lives in a way. And, it could have been me, right? She could have lived, and that could have happened to me instead. And so it really hits you hard after, it's been a month, and it's still, when I really think about it, especially the last several days, because we actually got to see her services. They live streamed it. So the last 2 days I've seen, the viewing, and her services. And I think that's what really struck me the most, is that it was real, right? When you're hearing about it on the phone, or I was basically just hearing it through my mom. Once you see it, and it's weird to see it on my phone or on YouTube, but the reality struck me a little bit more than when I actually got to see her there, So I just wanted to touch on that, and hopefully if anybody watching this had that perspective or that opinion that sick people should just stay at home so that everyone else can move on with their lives, these are the consequences of that. And people like myself are relying on people like you to keep us safe. And it is a big thing to ask, but now that I see what my cousins are going to have to deal with for the rest of their lives, you have to ask yourself if you want that on your conscience, and if you want that to be a daily reminder, because that person's gone, right? That's the daily reminder, is that you're never going to get to see them again. And the reason why is because of you. So that's all I have for today. I know it wasn't a very cheerful topic, but it was something that I kind of felt like I needed to get off of my chest. We've been quiet about it because we don't want to make anybody feel worse about the situation, but it's scary, and it scares me, and it scares people like me to see these things happening. So that's all I've got, and I hope to see you guys again soon.